Hello viewers and welcome. Daily race C on the Nürburgring 24 hours. Should be an interesting race, and it was hella interesting. A lot of stuff happened, so stay tuned. So starting in P3, if I want a chance to be in the lead, I should overtake before the GP section ends. Because on the long sweeping corners of the Nürburgring it will be very difficult because it's a very narrow track. So the GP layout is the main section of overtaking where most overtakes happen on this track. It's not impossible on the rest of the track, but it's much more difficult. Now here we go, lights out and away we go, tucking immediately behind the Supra. I'm in the Ferrari car, which has probably the best acceleration out of all the cars, but the Supra has the straight line speed and overall speed. He brakes a bit early and gives me the position. I'm now into P2, ready to fight for P1. And you can see me sticking to the inside and him trying to be behind me, kind of pushing me, goes through me, and then goes wide on the exit. See, the GP layout is where I can really push because I do not have as much confidence on the rest of the track compared to here. So this is where you will see me pushing, and he braked a bit too early. He could have braked at least 20 meters later. But it is what it is. I can't moan about it, so I'll square up and move on. The thing with this race is it's got adaptable weather, so by the end of this race we could have rainy weather that would dramatically change the outcome of this race. Into this hairpin, I brake late because mainly my line is very different to most people, and you can see he took advantage of that and slips on the inside. But I still have the better exit, so that's why I'm basically right on his bumper. And you can see the straight line speed of the Supra just makes it quite a better car. But I'm still stuck behind it. I'm keen on not conceding my position as easily, so I'll fight it all the way through. And now going into this left-hander, braking just before the 100 mark. I am on the inside, and now I take the position back. And now I'm ready to get back behind the P1 car, get back on his bumper, on his gearbox, and ready to attack him at any moment. Here is where my dominance is about to end because I am no longer on the GP layout, which is where my confidence is all at. So as we round up the final chicane, my confidence or aggressiveness will be going down. And you can see someone hit him and he got all the way off. This gives me a bit of a cushion zone in case maybe I make a mistake, maybe I crash. Gives me a little bit of a cushion so I don't lose a position and don't have to fight back. And here we go, finally, the Nürburgring, the actual green hell. Going through here, it is very worrying and exciting at the same time. You are excited because you're driving very fast on a very tight and narrow track, but you are scared because, again, it's a very fast and narrow track, super easy to crash on. Especially when the weather changes and then you get a drop of rain, you're basically screwed. And you can see he made a mistake, and mistakes will be going on through the entirety of this race. And I'm now on his bumper and I'm ready to push him. I'll keep pushing him into another mistake. I didn't have to wait long because he made another mistake and he spun, giving me P1. I'm ready to push, to extend my lead, to basically preserve my dominance. You can see me slightly going on the grass here. Now fast forward a couple of minutes, the German driver that I was fighting is no longer here, and I'm going through the carousel, probably many people's favorite corner, not mine, but it's a very interesting corner indeed. And you can see the French driver behind closing the gap on me ever so slightly. This quite worries me and puts a bit of pressure that is unneeded in a race where you're already under a lot of pressure. And you can see me, I brake where I'm not supposed to brake, basically giving him the position again. No confidence, and here we go, contact, and he phases through me and he goes wide. Now I have preserved my lead by quite questionable means, but I'll not think too much about it and keep pushing. I need to extend the gap, but this is where the Porsche is dominant because the Ferrari is more of a rotation car and not of a straight line car, so this section is very flowing and fast, and you quite need the engine because there is a lot of straight lines. The Porsche doing the favor by having questionable tactics to overtake me again. And now we're equal, it's fair and square between us. But now there is another driver in the mix, which is the Spanish driver in the GT86. As I go wide again onto the grass, you can see I'm clearly not the best in this section. And like you have dirt on the tires, which would quite slow you down, so you have to push less until your tires are clean again. And in the mentality of a racing driver, you do not want to slow down. He crashes, so my position is back, so now I'm chilling in P2. Fast forward a couple of minutes again. You can see now the Porsche behind me, he's putting pressure on the GP track. Now on the GP track, again, this is where my confidence is, but I seem to throw my confidence off the roof. And I basically brake a bit too late, and now I'm pissed, so I'll go back at him. This over here is not my best corner, Schumacher S, because usually I'm used to driving on the Porsche, and this is my quite first time driving the Ferrari actually. So this is why you can see me making a couple mistakes that I wouldn't usually make. And you can see the Porsche extending the lead bit by bit, so it's my mission to clutch back P2. And this is what I will do until the end of the race. I will not give up on P2. So fast forward a couple minutes, 5 minutes to be exact. If the gap stayed the same, but what happened here is he made a mistake, he went wide, and this is basically giving me the position, inviting me to take the position. He tried to cover it up, didn't work. I am now far gone and he will not catch me. And this is my favorite corner because you're probably jumping in the air. My monkey racer brain finds it addictive because you're flying when you're not supposed to. So what happens next is I just kept extending the gap bit by bit until the end of the race, and it was not interesting, so skip forward. P2, let's go. And now, on to race 2, still in the Ferrari. I quite like this car despite its disadvantage compared to the Supra. I love the Ferrari because it's a rotation car, and I'm more of a rotation driver. I don't like straight line speed, despite it being very, very important during this race. I prefer to make my speed through the corners compared to the straight lines, which is what the Ferrari is exactly good at doing, but then I suffer on the straight lines. So now here we go again, lights out and away we go, tucking immediately behind the Porsche. You can see me accelerating better than the Supra, and you can see me slowly getting closer to him. And this just proves the Ferrari's acceleration is top notch. Going into turn 1, you can see me braking perfectly and now pushing it. I ghost through him, which I'm quite miraculous for doing. I quite mastered the tactic of ghosting through cars. I have no idea how I do it, but my monkey brain seems to figure it out all the time. I go through the cars like they're nothing, and my monkey brain somehow knows I will ghost through them. And sometimes it doesn't happen, which throws me off completely. As you get into higher ranked lobbies, ghosting will become less and less. But in lower ranked lobbies, ghosting is very apparent, and I can't seem to get into higher ranked lobbies because despite me being quite fast enough, I am not as consistent as other racers, which put me in a lower ranked lobby. And I think that rank is more based on sportsmanship compared to driver rating. I'm not very sure, but I think it's a mix of both. And now fast forwarding a couple minutes, you can see Iron Force, German driver behind me, in a Mercedes German car. He's a German on a German track in a German car. This couldn't get more terrifying because he knows the ins and outs of this track, and you can see him pushing as I go wide. He knows tricks that I don't know. So my best chance is by aggressive defending, and that did not happen because he hit me. Pushing me into the barrier, that should have been a penalty for him, but surprisingly he didn't get one. I'm very pissed and I'm very focused on clutching back the time that I lost by him hitting me into that barrier. I have damage which I didn't account for going into this corner, which is why I went wide, losing me even more time. Now I'm even more pissed and even more keen on bringing back the time and overtaking him again. A couple minutes pass and I'm back on his tail, going through probably my favorite hairpin of this track. I take an interesting line that seems to work for me about all the time. I get pretty decent acceleration out of the corner, and you can see I have just slightly better acceleration out of the corner. Slipstream doesn't matter in these cars as much as it does in other cars, because mainly the downforce is way less compared to GR1. And now braking just before the 100 mark, you can see me pushing it to the rim. I'm quite on his tail and I'm not conceding my position. I am ready to attack all day long. I have never been more greedy for P1 and I'm coming for the win. As I make a tiny mistake, losing me just a tiny bit of time, not too big of a deal, I'll be back on him probably by the end of the straight. And you can see him trying to shake me off with slipstream, and I take to the inside mainly because I was setting up for the chicane, which is way better than the other chicane. I feel like they should always may have this chicane. And now you can see me how faster I am through that chicane. I am faster than him. I am ahead. I try to brake late, but he takes the inside. He has the inside. It's very difficult to pull that on the outside. So I go back, slot in, and I am ready to make a next move, which is, there is no next move when you're on this Nürburgring. It's basically his next mistake. You're gonna force him into a mistake, or wait for the very few corners where you can actually overtake. And speaking of mistakes, I'm the one who made a mistake. Well, we both did. You can see we basically flew through him. So that gave him probably a 1.5 second advantage on me that I need to clutch back ASAP. With a little bit of front wing and suspension damage, I will need to wait a little bit before being able to push 100%. And now going onto the straight, quite miraculously, I did my wheels onto the grass, 360 Ooga Booga, said goodbye to my talent, said goodbye to my skill, and now I'm ready to rip someone's head off. And now he is 6 seconds ahead. If I want to get any chance of P1, I will need to push way harder than I ever done in my entire life. Fast forwarding a bit, you can see him pulling away even, extending the gap. And now I make another mistake, I go a little wide into the barrier, and now you can see the two Danish drivers that were fighting behind me are now overtaking me. A little wheel spin, giving the position to the driver behind. Yeah, safe to say I had zero confidence after that incident. I'll basically try to clutch back as much time as possible. I'm just hoping for P3 at this point, not even P2. And now going into this corner, I can really push. I like to push in that corner because this is where the Ferrari shines the most. You can quite throw it into the corners and not think too much about it. And you can see I was on his tail. He was slower than me. I bumped drafted him. That gave me a bit of front damage, which was not welcome, but it is what it is. And now on the straight, I'm using the slipstream and I'm using my advantage in the corners. And he brakes a bit too early. I didn't account for that. And now I dip my wheels on the grass, not spin, but make a mistake. And now into the barrier again. And that was basically the end of this race. From here till the end, same thing, nothing happened. P4. Disappointing result. Going into the third and final race. Starting in P2, I got a German driver up ahead in a Mercedes. I find it surprising that it is another driver, because they got the same exact car, so I hope I could make easy work of him. There we go. It's lights out and away we go. You can see just how good accelerating the Ferrari is compared to the Mercedes. Basically right on its tail from the start through the rain. It's gonna be a rainy race and a hell of an interesting one. I outbrake him into the corner, getting a perfect line through turn 1. Perfect line through turn 2. Now pushing onto the exit through the rain, it's quite slippery and quite tricky. Most drivers are on the hard tires and you can see I think the German and the Mercedes is also on a hard tire. Therefore, I immediately blew past them. You can see on the moisture meter, if it's just slightly above the first line, being on the hard will put you at a disadvantage. I took the decision from the beginning to be on intermediate tires, and that was the right decision because you can see me just sailing past everyone, increasing the gap. And now going into the hairpin through the wet is quite tricky. I still do not know what the breakpoints are. I'm just trying to figure out what the breakpoints should be through the rain, and the Nürburgring is such a big track that one spot could be completely dry and the other spot would be like dense, wet. Also, the very hilly nature of the circuit proves it to be quite challenging. And you can see me having a bit of a moment slipping to the right, as well as the driver behind, Bob Jenkins, slowly closing the gap with the Supra. Again, the Supra is the faster car, and he's got also intermediate tires, so there is no apparent advantage or disadvantage other than the car. And now you can see him pushing me. He's right on my tail and I'm basically defending it to the maximum. I'm trying to take it easy, not make any mistakes, because one mistake through the rain will send me through the barrier. The tiniest input is enough to send you to the barrier, so that is why you got to be extra cautious through the rain. And now you can see he's been pushing me, I've defended him, and I've also started to increase the gap, but that will slowly perish away as we are on the straight and the Supra starts to show its dominance. Onto this corner, I brake a bit early, do not want to take any risk because I have zero idea how it's like. And you can see the Supra just closing the gap. He braked quite later than I did, maybe he didn't even brake at all, I have no idea. But you can see he closed the gap, and now he's right on my tail, and there is quite a bit of a straight left. He could make a move, and you can see his teleporting, showing that he has not very good internet. And he dipped the wheel onto the grass, still teleporting. On the outside, he loses a bit of time. Again, teleporting, I cannot tell where he is. He probably is somewhere and then he goes to another place. So there is no way telling where he actually is because he's teleporting everywhere. If you're with drivers with bad internet, you just pray they do not hit you, because even if they hit you, you know it's not their fault because it's probably the internet. Now going into the section, it's very tricky. I make a tiny mistake sending me into the wall. Again, just proving how tricky it is through the rain. And I'm pretty positive I'm one of the better drivers compared to drivers who lose their... Let's keep it friendly. Compared to drivers who lose their minds when it starts raining. And now you can see the Supra again pushing me, again showing how fast he is on the straights. Flexing his muscle, trying to infuriate me, but I take none of it. And I'm keeping sure he does not overtake me no matter what. Driving in the rain makes it much easier to defend and much harder to attack, which is why I'm able to conceive my position without pushing too much. Unless you're a very outstanding driver, a very good driver, it is not that easy to overtake in the wet. But some drivers, and many do. Unless you're on a straight or the driver ahead you make a mistake, it won't be easy attacking and overtaking the driver. You have to be considerably faster than him. Now fast forwarding a couple minutes, going into this very long and straight section, you can see just the Supra, how much faster, how he's closing the gap and as well as teleporting. It's quite interesting because, again, defending a driver who is not where he is, teleporting, there is a lot of unknown, a lot of mystery going on, because you don't know where he is, you don't know where he will be, and again, the more he teleports, the harder to predict him. And racing is mostly predicting what the driver ahead will do and what your car will do when you do this or do that. So if you cannot predict your car or predict the other drivers, you cannot really make stuff happen. And you can see, quite a relief, he makes a mistake slowing him down just before the carousel. Because I think if he was right behind me on the carousel, he would push me very hard and probably spin me out on the exit. Because it happened to me before on this very race. It just leaves this strange memory that you fear it will happen again. It's very annoying. Fast forwarding to the third and final sector of the track, this is my favorite corner. I braked just before the jump because usually you'd catch airtime, but I braked just in case because I'm on the rain, don't want to push a mistake, don't want to get airtime and then fail to brake. In the rain, it's like double inflation. The braking distance inflates and the speed you need to go through the corner decreases. So you have to brake even earlier to go full speed through the same corner. And once it's your first time out in the rain, you don't know what's gonna happen. You quite take it easier than you could have. You could push it much more, but you take it easy because you don't want to make a mistake that will make you regret everything. Now, which is worrying me a bit is the Supra is much faster on the straight, and we got a very, very long straight coming up ahead. And the Supra not only is faster, he also got my slipstream as we round up the final corners before the incredibly long straight. Probably one of the longest straights in the game. It's not the longest, it's second to Special Stage Route X, which got the longest straight in the game. And now here we go, this straight, you can see him. I'm better off the exit, but as we got higher speed, I try to shake him off my slipstream, but he teleports back into my slipstream. So I get a moment of relief saying he's not in my slipstream, then he teleports in there, which worries me. And now, he overtakes me. You can see just how much faster the Supra is, flies past me like I'm nothing. Here is where the Ferrari struggles a bit. The Ferrari struggles with the top end speed. That seems not to be there. But I'm now in the Supra slipstream, which he is increasing the gap. So the slipstream is becoming less and less relevant. But a sign of relief, the straight is starting to get. Here we go into a couple twisty corners. He makes a mistake, goes onto the grass. I don't push it too hard, but I pushed it hard enough to overtake him. And he made another mistake. He went wide, giving me P1 again. And now one more lap of this. The weather will probably start to dry up. And you can see it's a little brighter compared to the first time we went around here. Skipping forward a couple of minutes, you can see it is almost nearly completely dry. And you can see me finishing up the final corners of the race, about to claim my long-awaited victory as the German drivers has a bit of a moment. No idea what happened there, it did not catch it on the replay. But now the only thing that separates me from the win, and you can see me weaving to the right and the left. Very happy. A bit of a moment, but I catch it early on, claiming my win, finally.